Hello and welcome to my America's Got Talent Season 21 Week 2 Auditions Recap and Review. My name is Marcin Ahomey, content creator and the host of Marcin Ahomey's Recap and Review podcast, where I talk about TV, music, celebrities and so much more. If this is your first time tuning into my podcast and you're listening on Spotify, please download the episode and follow the podcast so you don't miss anything when a new episode is dropping. And remember, you can always follow me on my social media platforms on my Instagram under the name Marcin Ahomey and my YouTube channel, which is Marcin Ahomey. All of it is available in the thumbnail of the podcast if you're listening on Spotify. And a little quick reminder that you are more than welcome to listen to this as an audio on Spotify or on a video podcast on my YouTube channel. So the choice is yours. Anyways, so we are on week 2 for the auditions of America's Got Talent Season 21. And last night, it was an absolutely fantastic show. Again, I think this season already has absolutely been a real treat so far. And so far, the talent this year has just been fantastic. And overall, it was just a brilliant episode because we had some great acts on. We had, a few montage acts. We had some physical comedy on. We had two brothers who are the nephew of a famous celebrity. And we had 2 golden buzzers on tonight. One of them being Sophia's golden buzzer, and Howie pressed his golden buzzer, his second golden buzzer for an act that was a returning contestant from a previous season. And honestly, I think that this act in particular he pressed it for, I think have got a huge chance of winning this whole season because this act was just incredible. And honestly, and the whole show overall was an absolutely brilliant one as well. We just had some great acts on tonight. So without any further ado, let's talk about the week 2 auditions for America's Got Talent Season 21. So the first act of the night we had was Naija and Zayn. I apologize if I mispronounced your name. I do apologize on that. And they are a singing duo from Hawaii. They are does it say they're brothers? I think they are brothers. I need to double check that. But they were, so according to the wiki here, they were raised in the deep Hawaii roots and they gained their fame through viral Instagram and TikTok videos of old school R&B type of stuff. And then they've done many music events and they've appeared in a commercial for the Gap brand of clothing in 2024. And also their cover was actually featured on the live action Lilo and Stitch movie from last year, which was Elvis's Burning Love. And they were also inspired to be on the show after Grace Vanderwall, who won it 10 years ago. So, it's always cool to see some inspiration from the contestants from past years being on the show, being inspired by other people, which I think is awesome. So for their performance, for their audition, they did an original song called Heartbeat. So basically it was, I wasn't too sure what the song was actually meant, but all I can say is that they were absolutely brilliant. And I just think this song is going to be an absolute hit for them. Howie mentioned that their voice and the quality reminded him a bit of Grace from 2016, and they're going to be memorable. People are going to know their name, and he thinks they are stars. Mel mentioned that they're very likable. She's rooting for them, but she didn't feel she connected with the song, but she was connected by their vocals and the harmonies. Sophia mentioned that they were in heaven. They were like in heaven on the stage, and Simon mentioned it was hard to do, and they've got talent. And they all got talent. That's what he mentioned about that. And I agree. I don't really agree with I definitely agree with the judges here because I think this song. I honestly need this song on Spotify right now. Like if anyone knows if it's on Spotify, please let me know. Because that was a really good song as well. And honestly, I loved the blending of the harmonies that did. The harmonies that blended together were just beautiful, and the song was such a well-written song, and I think I could definitely feel the emotion coming out of them as they were singing. So it was just fantastic. I think they are definitely, I think they're definitely going to be very memorable. They're going to be rooted. They're going to be rooted for sure. And I think that seeing singers like this duo on the show, I just think are just I think are just absolutely just fantastic. They were fantastic overall. Just hearing, again, I can't really describe anything else to say, but it was just fantastic. I would love to see them in the live shows. I think they've got a real good shot, especially with their fan base. And also, believe it or not, I recently found out they are actually one of them is actually the nephew of Bruno Mars. So that's honestly a very cool fact that I did not know. But I think they've got a lot of potential in the competition. I think they could definitely go really far, and I'm very excited to see what they do next. But overall, as a first audition, I thought they were absolutely fantastic. Now we go on to the worst act of the night, which was straight after, which was Frankie Le Penna, who is a novelty act. He's from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he's known for being very viral on TikTok and other social media, and doing like this stuff with how do I describe it? All I know is that he's very popular on TikTok. He's done a lot of stuff. On his TikTok with I think the sort of act that he did here. So for what he did here, he did a novelty act routine where he was popping balloons with his behind to LMFOs. I'm sexy and I know it. And he had crew on the stage and they were giving him balloons, and he kept popping them by sitting down on them. Where Mel buzzed Mel pressed Howie's Mel pressed up Howie's buzzer, then Sophia pressed Simon's buzzer, and then both the ladies pressed the buzzers on him. But I think I could tell like I don't know why it seems like they always do that to the judges sometimes. It was definitely interesting because I can tell that the Mel and Sophia kind of wanted it to end already. Howie mentioned that he was attempting to set a world record. He didn't think it was for AGT, and he said no. And Sophia mentioned that nobody knew what he was doing, and unfortunately he got eliminated from the competition on that note. So again, I think that I'm not gonna lie, this was one of those acts where I was just like, I didn't even know what to think about, because it was just so random, like just someone popping balloons with their behind, just sitting on them. I mean, it was I don't know, like it's one of those acts I just think is so bizarre, but at the same time, I can't even describe it. So it was very, very interesting to say the least. I will say that rather. Definitely an interesting act to say the least. Even there was no hope for this act that this was going to be going through, in my opinion. So him not going through was definitely the right call in my eyes. Next up, we had I'm going to try and pronounce the name. Buid Sando. Again, I apologize if I pronounce your name wrong. And he's a dancer. He's also he also has a huge following on social media, as well as these three acts that we're going to talk about now. This is the second one. They've got they've got a decent amount of following, in a way. So and again, this was one of these performance auditions, I guess, where I don't know what to think of it. It was just so like random. So basically his performance was shown, and he's basically doing a freestyle dance routine. So he was on the floor dancing. It was just honestly he was going all over the place on that stage, which was pretty interesting. There was no buzzers, but Howie he did get through with 3 yeses. Howie mentioned when Mel mentioned that she is completely out of her brain, but she was not impressed. Howie mentioned that she's definitely out of her brain, and he mentioned that he knows that he's got more of it. Sophia mentioned that she loved it. And Simon mentioned that it reminded him of a lot of people who went to see and ask about I don't know. He was just interested. I could tell he definitely enjoyed it. He mentioned he had to imagine what something else is going to look like, and he's seeing it in his head, so that's why he said yes. I think that it's one of those acts I just think is so random, but at the same time it's also bonkers, but in a good way. And he's definitely the definition of that. There's no way about it. Again, I just think while it wasn't the best act of the night for sure, but he definitely made up for the entertainment factor, which I thought was definitely pretty fun to see. Again, I know this might not be everyone's cup of tea. This definitely wasn't mine, in my opinion. But I do think that he definitely had a blast on here, and that's all that we can ever ask for these types of shows, I guess. So next up, we had an act who I have been following for quite some time on social media, and when I found out she was going to be on this season, I was so excited, and that is Rinya Kando, who is a singing impressionist. She's from Chicago, And she is known for being online on social like Instagram, TikTok, and where she basically showcases her impressions to many variety of impressions, and she's known for doing the little skit that she did it for her audition here. And also she was on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, and was on the 21st season of Wild and Out, which is the show Nick Cannon hosts, as a new cast member to improve to the improv comedy show, which was I've actually yet to see. I've yet to see Wild Out. I really have to at some point. But for her audition, she basically did a bunch of celebrities as if they were to have stubbed their toe, and she included Christina Aguilera, Lady Gaga, Jennifer Coolidge, Kim Kardashian, Mariah Carey, and Ariana Grande. And again, I thought that she was just fantastic. I thought she nailed the impressions. I thought she also she has an amazing singing voice as well when she was doing some of those impressions. It was really, really fantastic. So Harry mentioned that he loved it. She's hysterical, and her life is going to change after this, and she's going to be limping because if you get the joke. Now Mel was a bit critical here, which I did. Which again, Mel B, why are you always so critical? Like why can't you just be happy for an act? Why can't you just like an act for once? So she mentioned it was funny, but it could have been even more funnier. That she liked it, but it needed more showmanship. Which okay, I can understand that from a perspective, I guess. Maybe she could have a bit more showmanship. As Simon mentioned, it was hilarious because the impressions were hilarious. And secondly, even though he was annoying, it was really good annoying. And then it got to the point where he was thinking, who's she going to do next? And even she had a little dig at Mel, saying, well, that's why you're not very funny at stand-up comedy, which was a funny reference because Mel did a little skit on the 2018 finale with Samuel J. Conroy where she was doing trying to be a stand-up comedian, and of course Simon jokingly buzzed her, which was quite funny. So yeah, so that was a really funny little inside joke that he added in there. But honestly, I thought that she was just absolutely fantastic. Again, like I mentioned, I've been following her for quite some time online, and honestly, to see her take this moment was just brilliant. I loved the whole routine of she did of the whole gag, and again, not only did I think she nailed the impressions, but her singing voice is actually incredible. The Ariana Grande one was so good, and she even hit the high note, the whistle note. When she did Mariah Carey, because even though I'm not the biggest fan of Mariah Carey, but honestly, Ringo, she absolutely nailed that impression for her. So again, I think it's so refreshing to see impressionists on the show. I just think that I don't remember the last time we had an impressionist on the show, at least from my memory, but she was an absolutely breath of fresh air. I thought her act was absolutely brilliant. I really do think she has a lot of potential to go really far this season, and I'm really hoping she does because I think she's so talented. She definitely deserves a break, and I do think she has what it takes to definitely make it a long way in the competition. So, like I mentioned, I thought she was absolutely brilliant. Now we go on to Sophia's first golden buzzer of the season, which was for 23-year-old singer Lara D, who is from Sydney, Australia. And let me just get her page up quickly on the fandom, because I do quite a lot. So she is from Southwest Sydney, Australia, and she was on The Voice. She was on The Voice back in 2018, and yeah. So hang on a second, give me a second, folks. So like I mentioned with Lara, both times she was on The Voice in Australia, where the first time she failed to receive a return from any of the coaches. Then in 2019, so a year later, she was on the 8th season where she finished in the top 12 as a member of Kelly Rowland's team from Destiny's Child. So she's done some successful stuff there. And for her audition, she did a rendition of Oscar-winning Tears by Ray. I love me some Ray. And let me tell you, she absolutely smashed this performance. She was absolutely phenomenal. Her voice is just incredible, and she absolutely crushed it. Someone mentioned that she was brilliant. Sophia mentioned that she loved it, and there's something that is very special, and everybody felt it. And this is where Howie was going to press the golden buzzer for her. He mentioned this is the kind of thing that he's been looking for. She's a star and she wants to do something special. And just about as he was about to press the golden buzzer, Sophia got there before him, and in a very savage move. And it just shows that the golden buzzers are very like competitive this year. Like all the judges want to get a golden buzzer at some point, and Howie was just about to get it, and then Sophia did it herself, which was a very funny moment there. But in all seriousness, she so deserved it. I mean, her voice again is just her voice is just incredible, and not only did I think she sang that song brilliantly, I think because for me it's very hard to take on Ray because she's got such an unbelievable voice, and she's also quite distinct in a way. But she made this song her very own. I love the little rapping she did in some portions, and she has this like superstar glow to her, which is just infectious. Like I think she's someone that we could definitely see being a potential finalist at this rate because again her voice is just she was just absolutely fantastic, so amazing, such a great voice, and the fact Sophia beated Howie, it just shows how brilliant she was. And I think it was a real competitive race in a way to have her on her side. But she so deserved it. I thought she was absolutely incredible, and again her voice, like I haven't heard a voice like that in such a long time. Like it has a very her voice is like very R&B, very sultry, very kind of like smooth, soulful, like everything you want in a singer like her. And she was just absolutely phenomenal and a very well-deserved golden buzzer again. And I cannot wait to see what she brings in the live shows. Next up, we had a Danger Act, which was Brad and Tracy, who are husband and wife. Brad was born in Moscow, and where was Tracy born? And he's been involved in very much circus stuff, and he's done a lot of like Guinness World Record stuff. He was on the Late Show with David Letterman, and he's done again a lot of stuff over the years with his other stuff, which is quite a lot to read here. So for their audition, it had Brad basically nailing a board to his face before letting Tracy finishing off, which again, I love Danger Acts, but this was pretty intense to watch. And then we had Brad laying down face first on a bed of broken glass, as basically Tracy was walking on him. Which again, broken glass, and even at the end when they were speaking to Terry, he was actually bleeding on his forehead. So that was like literal like glass there, and. Afterwards, it finished with Brad swallowing several swords in his mouth and lifting an anchor with a hook attached to his nose, where Mel B busted because she was very very much freaked out by this act. I think everyone else was, because it was absolutely gruesome to watch. It was just it just grossed me out the whole way through. Simon mentioned asked if they've ever watched a film called Misery, and the fact that they're so normal is what made it crazy to him. Sophia mentioned it was one of the weirdest things she's ever seen on AGT, and Mel mentioned that she was looking at the audience and they were horrified, so she's going to say no. Because again, I will admit, I can understand where Mel is going for, because it's a very gross act in a way. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and I can definitely understand that. But for me, I love seeing these types of Danger Acts. I thought they were very fun to watch. It's one of the things that it's so tough to look at. I mean, like the tricks, like the hook, the nail, and the swords. It's like it was just so gross to watch. But at the same time, for some reason, I thought it was just so entertaining to watch. Again, honestly, of all the Danger Acts this season, I don't know if they're going to make it through to the live shows. I very highly doubt it. But at the same time, for some reason, I just really, really enjoyed them. I don't know why. But again, maybe it's just my bias towards Danger Acts over the years. As you guys know, I love Danger Acts on the show. I think they were always so entertaining to watch. And I do think that they were very entertaining to watch. And overall, I actually quite enjoyed it, if I'm really honest. And now we go on to Howie's second golden buzzer, which was for Magic Group 100 Fingers, and this group was actually formed by season 17 finalist Yu Ho Jin, who made it all the way to the final back in 2022, and he came back this time bigger and better with a group. And all I can say is, folks, is that I think we have just found the winner of season 21 right here, everybody, because all I can say is that this was out of this world phenomenal. So For the audition, they did a performed a series of playing card based illusions, which include multiplying the cards, changing their coloration, then outstretching them, then making them disappear entirely, and then outstretch basically a large row of cards throughout the whole act. And then at one point, they had like these like rods. I think they were rods. I think of the cards. I think, but then they kind of made them teleport to each other. And all I can say was this is not only for me. This was not only the best act of the night without question, but this is honestly one of the best acts I've ever seen on Got Talent. I mean, they were just absolutely phenomenal. And again, this was the act I was so excited to see from the trailers alone, and they were just absolutely remarkable. Howie mentioned that he's never seen a better magic act like in his life, and they deserve their own hotel in Vegas. And so Simon mentioned that it was one of the best he's ever seen, and he's really happy for him. And I completely agree with what Simon and Howie said here, because I think because like this is honestly up there as well one of the best acts I've ever be seen on Got Talent. Like they were just remarkable, and just everything about this performance was perfection. Like everything from the sleight of hand, the coordination, the timing, the music choice, everything about this was absolute next level. And to be honest, at one point, like for me, this I didn't feel like I was watching an audition right here. For me, from my perspective, this felt like a headline Vegas act right here. Like these guys deserve their own headline show in Vegas, and because this is the exact act that is Vegas worthy. They so deserve the golden buzzer. I'm so happy they did, because they were just oh my god, they were just absolutely remarkable. And it's just, again, I think that to see an act like this win the show this year would just be amazing. They were just absolutely mind blowing, and I honestly, I think this is their season to lose. I think they have now just solidified themselves as the ones to be. I think they're going to be really hard to beat this season. I think they're going to be the real contenders to win the whole thing this season. They were just remarkable, and I think to have an act like this potentially win would just be amazing. So I'm so happy that Yoo Ho Jin returned, because we got to see him get that golden buzzer, and again, he's so deserved. They so deserved it, and honestly, again, I think they got a real chance already of actually winning the whole thing. And yeah, they are definitely the ones I am officially rooting for to actually win the whole season. Like this, they were absolutely world class. Now we go on to the next act of the night, which was Holland and Sienna, who are an aerial duo. They are a married couple. They're both acrobatics and circus artists. Holland is originally from Colorado, and Sienna is a former acrobatic gymnast. And they're now living in Las Vegas together, which is awesome. So of course, we all love a bit of Vegas, don't we? So for their audition, they did a aerial routine to Alex Warren's Eternity, which is I love me some Alex Warren, both on stage. And at one point, during the middle of the audition, and I actually also got to point this out. At one point, Sienna almost had a bit of a costume malfunction, because the back of her outfit was actually was just about to like came off, but then they sorted it out quickly, so no issues affected the performance. And to end off, they were at the judges table on with the big rope, and they did some aerial like trick routines over the auditorium, and my jaw was absolutely dropped the whole way through. I love seeing aerial acts on the show, and they were just incredible, absolutely superb. Sophia mentioned that it was really exciting. She was nervous from the beginning, and it was flawless. Mel mentioned that the way their bodies moved, it looked effortless, and it was perfection. And Simon mentioned it's one of the best aerial acts he has seen, and I completely agree, because like this is definitely up there, one of the best kind of aerial acts I think the show has ever had. Like again, I just think that I love seeing Ariaks on the show, and these two, they were just an absolute spectacle from start to finish the whole way through. And the way they used the stage, not only on stage but near the judging panel, and I thought the song choice was really fitting as well. It really suited the routine, and the stunts they were doing as well were just mind blowing. They were just incredible, absolutely fantastic. I think that last year, of course, we had Saika Maria making all the way to the final, and I think they've definitely could be ones to look out for once we get to the live shows, because they are for sure an act that could definitely do really well, and potentially be a finalist as well. I thought they were just incredible, and I honestly, again, I do think they have what it takes to potentially step it up on the next level, because they have got so much potential to go really far this season. And again, they were just absolutely fantastic the whole way through. It was just incredible. Next up, we had Gino Plager, who is a magician from Arizona. He's aged 21 years old, and he first got into magic by the age of 10 years old, and was also inspired by the season 9 champion Matt Franco, who was also the first magician to ever win AGT all the way back in 2014. And then in 2019, he's done a lot of stuff, such as he was also given the opportunity to be his intern for Matt Franco, became his educated and further educated in magic for his support, which is awesome, which is brilliant. But yeah, he's done quite a lot of stuff over the years, some very successful stuff, which is awesome. So for his audition, he did a sleight of hand magic routine where he had Simon choose a card, later revealed to be in his own hat, which was I can't remember what the card was now. But then he had Simon write down a word that relates to him, and he wrote down myself, which was, again, of course, it's typical Simon. And then he told a story behind his journey in performative magic through a deck of cards, and which Mel B shuffled beforehand, and he did all the sleight of hand whilst the storytelling was going on. And I absolutely loved him. He was absolutely brilliant, and I thought the whole routine was just fantastic. Mel mentioned that she's never seen magic done so quick, with so much showmanship. It was brilliant, entertaining, and magical. How he mentioned what he did was entertaining. He was so professional and so exciting. And he mentioned if he was lucky to come back to do something that is so basically so him in a way. And then someone mentioned earlier they saw maybe one of the best magic acts they've ever seen. He's got something completely different, which is that incredible enthusiasm, love for magic, and you can see it in his eyes. And I completely agree, because I thought he was this guy was just absolutely fantastic. I love seeing magic on the show, and to see him being really inspired by Matt Franco was just so cool. And his audition really kind of reminded me of it kind of had that Matt Franco-esque to it, you know what I mean? But I thought that his sleight of hand was just fantastic. But also, I loved the storytelling, which made it really touching. And just seeing his reaction at the end, and it just showed how much it meant to him. And I do think he could definitely be a dark horse in this season, because we've seen many magicians making it all the way to the finals. I think if he does the right stuff, I think he could definitely he could definitely take the shoes of Matt Franco and potentially being a finalist. I do think he has so much potential. He's got so much promise, and this performance alone just showed that he has got so much potential. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I love seeing magicians on the show, and I definitely think he's going to be someone to potentially look out for as it goes along, because he really was just absolutely just fantastic. And I cannot wait to see what he does next in his next performance. And finally, we actually had the final act of the night, which was Cesar Diaz, who is a comedian, like a physical comedian. He's from Portugal. He's basically a fourth generation physical comedian clown, and he's known for his My Way comedy routine, which he's done many times over the years. And and back in 2020, he was on the Italian series Tu Si Que Valis, which is like, I again, to this day, I do not know what that means. I assume it's like some sort of like Got Talent show or something. But he was eliminated in the playoffs for the semi-finals against someone else. So for his performance, he did his iconic My Way comedy routine, where at points he was dropping the mic. His trousers kept falling down. He was bumping into things. Like, it was just absolutely hysterical throughout. And I love seeing physical comedy on the show, and I just thought he was such a breath of fresh air. Sophia mentioned that they were going to leave tonight with a smile because of him. Howie mentioned that he is talented, funny, physical, and the best way to end off a night. And Simon mentioned that the whole act made him laugh, and he was laughing even more, thinking if somebody had tuned in halfway through. And he's very clever. And I totally agree with what the judges said here. I thought he was so entertaining, so unique, and he really reminds me of Freddie Starr. You know, if you don't know who Freddie Starr is, he was a very famous comedian and entertainer in the UK, who's unfortunately no longer with us. But he has got that very similar personality and physicality like Freddie Starr did. And again, I absolutely loved it. I love, again, physical comedy is literally one of my favorite things ever. And this was right up my alley. Like, the whole routine was so wacky. Everything, seeing that, the kind of like everything going wrong in a way. It was just so funny. And I think this is an act that is made for anyone of any age of the family. Like, if you're 2 years old, if you're 92 years old, any age, you would absolutely love this act. And I was one of them for sure. So he was just absolutely fantastic. I would love to see what he does next, because I think to see a physical comedian like him on the show, I just think it's absolutely brilliant. And I honestly think he has a lot of potential in the competition. So, and again, I absolutely loved him. So with that, it's time to go through my week 2 draft from this episode. So starting off, who I think will be finalists this season. The first one being 100 Thinkers, and I think at this rate they are the biggest lock to not only make it the finals but actually win at this rate, because their audition, that performance was just remarkable and so deserving of that golden buzzer. And for Lara D, I have her as a finalist too. Again, I think she's got a lot of potential in her. I think her audition was amazing, and I could definitely see the public getting behind her. Now, for the third one, I have Gino here, because I think he definitely could be one of those dark horse contestants who could definitely surprise us later down the line. Maybe get a golden buzzer in the live shows. I don't know, but we'll find out. But I do think he could definitely get the audience vote as well. Then for the semi-finals category, I have both Rinya and the Impressionist. I do think she could definitely make it far. I'm a bit biased because I really want her to go far this season. I really hope she does. And I also have Holland and Sienna, who I also think could make it far. For the quarterfinals, this might be a controversial one, but I think the singers, the two brothers, I think they could be a shock elimination in the quarterfinals, but I could also see them being dark horses to actually go very far. And also I have Cesar as a quarterfinalist right now. And for the deliberations, which I know that they're doing the callbacks this season, but I don't know how it's going to necessarily work. If it's going to be one episode spanned across a few episodes, got no idea. But I have the dancer and also Brad and Tracy. Again, I love seeing Dane Drax on the show, but they were just not my thing, in my opinion. So, but that's my overall draft for week 2 of the auditions this season. So there you have it. That is my week 2 recap of AGT season 21 week 2 auditions. Who are your favorites of the night? Feel free to share your thoughts down below. And honestly, could we see the winner this season being Yoo Jin? Because I think, with him being in a group now, of course being 100 Fingers, I thought that audition was just remarkable, and I honestly do think they have what it takes to actually win the whole thing. So I'm definitely rooting for them to go all the way. And again, I just think it'd be so cool to see an act like theirs be in Vegas, be on the Strip, everywhere. Like, this is an act that's going to tour, and I just know it. But they are definitely the act I'm for sure rooting for this season. But that's all for this week's review. Thank you so much for listening. And if you enjoyed it, please remember to follow the podcast and download the episode if you haven't already. And remember to follow me on my social media platforms linked shown in the thumbnail of the podcast. But with that in mind, thank you so much for listening to my AGT season 21 week 2 auditions. And of course, I'll see you guys next time.